Well, thank you for watching this episode of the Charlie Kirk Files. This is episode 5. We'll call it A Moment of Vulnerability, where we're covering this and talking about this whole situation as it's happening and the trajectory that I think it's on. Scott Adams is the guy who made the he made the comic Dilbert, and he's a very interesting guy. He's actually an occultist, and he believes in esoteric, metaphysical stuff. He should have been in a third Adams movie, but he hasn't made his appearance quite yet. But I think when there was a tragedy that happened a while back, and he said this on Twitter, he said a lot of energy was just released, and it all went somewhere. Well, and he's speaking from an esoteric mindset, and what that means is that spirit energy is going somewhere, and it affects the world system. I think the biblical example of that is the spirit that now worketh in the children of disobedience. That's Ephesians chapter number 2. So there is there's the God, the Holy Spirit, but there also is a spirit that now worketh in the children of disobedience. There's a satanic spirit. We covered that in 3 Adam 4, and the Charlie Kirk death was something that I will never diminish the significance of it. This thing was huge. I believe this is going to be up there with 9/11 as far as being a point where America was never really the same after this. I think it's going to be a big deal. And so let's talk about this for a moment. Now, I want to get into the reaction that everyone had about the Charlie Kirk thing. Okay, so this is people reacting to Charlie Kirk's death. You have people like Kristen Chenoweth, you have Dr. Phil, you have Russell Brand, Barack Obama, Kamala Harris making statements about it. Candace Owens, you got Chris Pratt, Donald Trump Jr., Arnold Schwarzenegger's talking about it. He said this. He said this is a horrible tragedy. May it also be a moment for everyone to rediscover their humanity. Rosie O'Donnell got in on the action, saying it was awful. Bill Clinton got in on it. Savannah Chrisley, Melania Trump, Jared Kushner, and Ivanka Trump. And by the way, put Kushner on your list, and I'm saying this sort of facetiously, but put him on your list for Antichrist candidates. Tim Tebow obviously said something about it. James Wood said something about it. Joe Biden, George Bush, and several others. So basically, everybody came out and said this was awful, this was horrible. And there's so many instances and examples of this. I want to show you this. These are screenshots of tweets that were out there. You have O'Shea Jackson saying, let's see here. He said, a maniac that killed that man, and you have no idea what you've just done. I never thought twice about the man except for clips on Twitter, but this was not the answer. You cannot make sense out of nonsense. Prayers to those who loved him, and prayers for those of us who can disagree and still respect each other's lives. Chris Pratt made his post about it. Maria Shriver said something about it. That's Arnold's tweet. And then you have, guys like Jason Aldean making comments about it. And you can go look all these up. You have what I consider, there's a liberal, then there's like a far left, and then there's like these insufferable leftist personalities. And you have all of them basically condemning it. And so just watch this with me.
Good evening, everybody. After our scripts for tonight's show were finished this afternoon, we here at the Late Show learned that Charlie Kirk, a prominent right-wing activist, was killed at a speaking engagement in Utah. I'm old enough to personally remember the political violence of the 1960s. And I hope it is obvious to everyone in America that political violence does not solve any of our political differences. Political violence only leads to more political violence. And I pray with all my heart that this is the aberrant action of a madman and not a sign of things to come.
Isn't a fundamental part of being an American that we are able to express our opinions to each other without fear, without this kind of horror? It was so angry at me.
Rosie O'Donnell.
Charlie Kirk didn't deserve to die. I don't think he deserved to die. I don't think anyone should die for their opinions. I don't think anyone should be targeted. I don't believe in violence. I don't believe in guns. I do not and never will. No to political violence. That's what I believe.
My friend and colleague,
Dr. Phil,
father and husband Charlie Kirk, 31 years of age, has been pronounced dead. I can barely believe I'm saying these words.
So let me just tell you, social media has been hot, red hot, white hot since all this happened. And I'm talking about people going crazy all over the place. Virtually everybody across the spectrum condemned this, but there were people on the far left that were leftist. And by the way, when you think of a political leftist, and I'm talking about like, Antifa, way out there type people on the spectrum, they pin the needle all the way that way. That's an occultic thing. That's a left-hand path person. That's who these people are. It's not a political view. These people practice a religion on the leftist, and I mean scorching left. That's when you get into the occult territory. That's black magic. That's the left-hand path people, and you have to see it that way. That explains their behavior. These people have gone to the dark side. And that is very real. And by the way, Star Wars was based off of mystery religion, the yin, the yang, left, right, the good guys, the bad guys, the left-hand path, the right-hand path, black magic, white magic. That's what the light side, the dark side is. That's what George Lucas talked about. We put that in the Third Adam 3X. And we're going to talk about more about Star Wars in the near future, because there's a lot of occultism in Star Wars. Matter of fact, if you want to understand occultism, you have to understand Star Wars. It's a great example of that. But that's for another video for another day. But virtually everybody was against this, except for a few people on the far left that were making posts celebrating this, that type of stuff. And a lot of them were school teachers and whatever. And you had accounts on Twitter like Libs of TikTok going crazy, exposing these people and actually getting, I don't know how many people fired from their jobs because of what happened here. And because of the things they were saying and how they were celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk. How monstrous could you be? But that's how monstrous these people are. These people are evil. These people are evil. They are crazies. And they were exposed. But you have to understand, in the broad spectrum, you got the left and you got the right. The only people that were against this were just a little sliver over here on the left, and they just getting lopped off. But now everybody here who's not these fringe people, everybody here is experiencing a moment of raw emotion, raw grievance. Now, let me ask you a question. You sitting there watching this. When that happened, that bothered you, didn't it? Bothered me. It bothered me. It bothered me to a degree that most things don't bother me. I mean, this Charlie Kirk thing there was just something about it that was different. There was just something about it that was exceedingly evil. I mean, I've been grieved in my spirit. I mean, on the human side, yeah, that was horrible. But something about it just didn't sit right with me spiritually. And even now, it doesn't sit right with me spiritually. There is something at work here. There is something spiritually, it's almost like I sense it. I'm not a psychic. I'm not a charismatic. But there's just something about this that doesn't add up, and it's off. And it grieved me. There are people all over the internet. I mean, I'm talking about people that deal with this stuff every day, that are talking about how this has so affected them and it's so bothered them. And what you have is a moment of raw emotion for everybody. And that is when everybody is vulnerable to a message. A moment of raw emotion, of raw vulnerability is when everybody is able to have something slipped into your psyche. I've had it suggested to me by people who talk to me. I have sources, and I have people that I think are good folks who are they're sources. They're people who've lived this. And one thing that they throw at me is something called trauma-based mind control. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever noticed how a lot of these kids' movies that were out there, I'm talking about like The Land Before Time and like Bambi and all these other, like a lot of Disney movies, one of the parents dies. tragically, sadly, oh, horribly. And like, I remember watching Bambi as a kid and feeling so terrible over that. It just blew my mind. But why is that? Because when they have that moment of trauma, when they traumatize your mind and make you feel that moment of raw, vulnerable emotion, that's when they can slip in some message. That's what they're doing. I believe that. Now, on the political side, here's a couple things that I want to float some ideas out there to you. I want you to think with me for a little while. I want you to think critically. There is a political concept called exploiting a crisis. There's a quote out there it's been attributed to Churchill, but he actually didn't say it. There's a bunch of people who've claimed it. It's kind of the source of it is kind of sketch, but there is a quote out there that says, "Never let a crisis go to waste." And right now you have a crisis, and there is something out there that is going to use this crisis for their benefit. Stick with me on this. Let me read this to you. Nefarious entities such as governments, political leaders, and religious and extremist groups have repeatedly used real or manufactured tragedies to rally support, justify repressive measures, consolidate power, and portray themselves as heroic defenders and saviors. This strategy works by capitalizing on fear, grief, and chaos to push agendas that might otherwise face resistance while framing opponents as the true villains. And that's a fact. That's what a lot of people have done through history. A good example of that is in Germany in the 1930s, there was something called the Reichstag fire. And shortly after, the man who shall not be named, we shall call him the German Voldemort, because on this platform you can't say that word, became Chancellor of Germany, and the Reichstag building in Berlin was set on fire, and they blamed it on the commies in order to rally support. And he used it as a pretext to suspend civil liberties, arrest political opponents, and pass the Enabling Act, which granted German Voldemort dictatorial powers. This positioned the Voldemort followers as protectors of the German state against supposed international threats. And so there's that. The burning of the Reichstag building was a pretext to do whatever they want. They created the crisis, and then they moved on to something and took power. The Gulf of Tonkin, of course, is the one who started the Vietnam War, and there's other things like that. You can go look up things like Operation Northwoods and such, where they were actually planning a false flag attack. It says here that U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff draft plans for false flag operations, including staging attacks like hijacking planes or sinking boats filled with refugees to blame it on Cuba. This would generate public outrage and justify a U.S. invasion to oust Fidel Castro, and that was during Kennedy's time, though President Kennedy vetoed it. The proposal shows how military leaders sought to portray the U.S. as a defender against communist aggression in the Americas. What they did was actually they actually created a crisis and then capitalized on it, and then came out with more power on the other end of it. Oftentimes, this is called the Hegelian dialectic, although that's not necessarily exactly right. The Hegelian dialectic was more of a philosophical concept, but what we have today is in the political world, there is something called problem, reaction, solution, PRS, problem, reaction, solution. And sometimes government entities will create a problem so that they can capitalize on the reaction of it. They can create a reaction to it, and in that they can give a solution to it. Problem, reaction, solution. And for example, if you want to start a water company, you go poison the river. Poison the river, nobody can drink water. And then there you are with a solution. You have a water company now, or let's just say a water filter. If you want to sell water filters, you know what you do? You go to the drinking hole, you poison the drinking hole, and everybody can't drink water. And now you come in with a solution, which is water filters, and you make a lot of money. Problem, reaction, solution. Now, in this scenario, I am with the Charlie Kirk deal. I am not going to suggest that there was some sort of conspiracy. I will let the investigations play out, and I will allow that to be sorted out by people who are existing higher above my pay grade. We will just let the dust settle on all the information, and we will see what comes forth with this. But there is a problem that was created, and there was a reaction to the problem. And remember the quote, never let a good crisis go to waste. There is a group that is not allowing the crisis to go to waste, and they are swooping in this instance, as the heroes of this nation. And I'll show you who they are in the next episode. This is the Charlie Kirk Files. Subscribe to this channel if you're new, and go ahead and smite the like button. And God bless you, friend. We'll see you next time.